Hi, my name is Abisoye and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Over the next 4 weeks, you will hear stories from people who've experienced trauma in the areas of homelessness, infertility issues, mental health, and divorce or separation. Most of the participants have never met before, but they share a traumatic experience. So stay tuned to hear more about them and their stories.
Hi, I'm Jason Edwards. Today's topic is concerning divorce and separation. My particular circumstance, I've been separated now for almost 7 years, and there's been lots of issues with separation that are literally ongoing.
Hi, my name is Elvis Gilbert. I was separated in 2012 and I got divorced in 2017. So separated 8 years ago and divorced just over 3 years ago. I'm the primary carer of my 2 children, which I had to go through the family court process in order to achieve such a feat, which obviously wasn't an easy one.
Both guests have been given a set of questions to ask one another, but I've also encouraged them to feel free to ask their own questions too.
Okay, so the first question I've got is, what was your lowest point during your divorce/separation?
My lowest point during the time of separation was when I wasn't seeing my children. I didn't have much legal knowledge or any legal knowledge at the time. I tried going to solicitors and the fees were too high for me to be able to afford it. I went to social services, they couldn't help me. I went to Citizens Advice, all I was told was seek legal advice, which as I said, I couldn't afford. So it was like hitting my head against a brick wall. And I felt truly helpless at that time. And all I thought, well, I'll never get to see my children again. And that really put a downer on me until I came up with the idea of actually going to study law myself in order to take the matter to court.
Yeah, that seems to be a very common occurrence, especially for men that are going through separation. They have no idea of law. They've never been involved with the police, family courts, solicitors, or CAFCAS, etc. So my experience was on meeting a friend of mine, literally just by chance, and we were having a chat about, how do we get to see our kids? And my friend said that he spent £70,000. Now that is the actual UK average of expenditure that many people have to spend in order from point A to going through the court process. Obviously we're in a recession, obviously with work, we've got to keep our eyes on our wallets, etc. So who has £70,000?
Not many people do.
So like yourself, you are almost forced by default. Either you can afford it, or one, you actually have to do some self-studying and increase your own knowledge in order to get the information that you need to self-represent. So that's what I ended up doing because I didn't have £70,000.
And I find as well that a lot of fathers tend to give up as a result of that because
very common.
Of the block, the financial status. A lot of men just give up. It's not that men are considered a lot of times deadbeats, but it's not that they are deadbeats. It's just that they cannot afford it emotionally, financially. It's just not possible for a lot of fathers to go through the process.
There are some issues, obviously, with culture, which we'll get onto later, and that perception that the kids will come back to you at some point. They magically turn up 18 years old with no emotional or mental issues.
But as we on that matter, I would just like to ask you a question. We were talking about the support, and as I said, what I had to do myself. But in your position, where did you find the support during your period of separation?
Well, my journey was a very long one, almost from 2014 up until this present day as we speak. So you may think that you're getting the support in order to see your child or children, etc., but it never stops because you've always got the other half, which is your child's mother, that you have to contend with. And as you said earlier, it's a brick wall. You've got an entity where you've gone from a loving, supportive relationship to someone who almost despises you, and that child represents you. So in order for the other party to move on, for mum to move on, she's got to remove that entity, and that unfortunately is us as fathers. My support, I started going to a number of men's charities or parents' charities, and getting support from parents that had either been through it or were going on the same journey at the same time. It's not a colour issue, doesn't matter what colour you are, it's a universal problem. I had support from my family, and my friends obviously pitched in, and at times my income dropped, so that brought on other issues with housing. And obviously when you're going through like the family courts, the things they look at is, if you don't have housing, how can you accommodate your child? So again, it's almost by default you lose.
So how did you find speaking to friends who probably had not been through a similar situation? How did you find the reception trying to explain your situation?
Yeah, well actually I look back, and there was a colleague I used to work with, and he was explaining he split up with his partner, and she moved from London to the Isle of Wight. I was a single man at the time, so that went literally over my head. I didn't have a concept. I tried to give support. Hey, let's go out for a drink. You know, I thought that would be a way of kind of alleviating that sort of pain and that sort of conversation. Cut to the chase when it happened to me and I was separated, and you literally, probably because I'm quite vocal, I just want to almost tell everyone and almost to say, look, how is this problem still going on from 1900, from whenever it started, where we are looked as just second-class citizens? And in 2020, there's so much change in the world. We're trying to be accepted for whoever you are, but it seems as a man, all we are literally sperm donors, and we don't have any rights whatsoever. And when we do fight for our rights and we're vocal, we're aggressive.
Yeah.
Strange that wasn't an issue when we were dating and courting, you know, the sort of makeup of what of expectations of what it's like to be a man, essentially. But those things come back to kind of, they can be used against you. And unfortunately, it seems to be a recurring theme of bias. I found as well, I've got two sisters, one older, one younger. I've got mum with me as well. They were very supportive, but it's almost like going on holiday and you've got these great stories and your friends haven't been anywhere and they keep hearing the same stories.
Yeah.
After a while, it's like
it gets a bit
repetitive, gets a bit boring,
and they tend to. I mean, I think you sort of lose friends in the process because they've not experienced it, and all they hear when they're with you is about this. And
and I just found as well, when I noticed I had to kind of be more aware of what I was saying, where almost the first thing would be like, I want to see my child, you know, it's your grandchild, why are you not on the same emotional level as me? You know, and you kind of get the kind of proverbial pat on the back. Again, as a man, you know, you'll be okay, you're a man, you're strong, you can go back to work and lift weights on your head and get on with it, and you're not touched emotionally, which is absolute nonsense, because we know, if anything, men are emotional, just as emotional as women. You know, this is my child. Fortunately, we can't cut our children in half, so let's work it out.
So all in all, you're saying that with support of people who's going through similar situations, it does make it a lot easier for you as a man.
Yeah, it does make it easier.
So you say the advice would be to any man who's going through it is probably find someone you know who's going through it and probably have that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, men, we don't have those conversations. Where women are very open, they can meet each other one day and they're the best of friends forever. With men, we're a little bit offish. You know, I've got to suss you out. That could take 5 years. Where I was just like, I haven't got 5 years. This is me. If I provoke something in you where we can have a common discussion and support each other, let's go for it. Right, I've got a question for you. What role did religion play in decisions leading up to the divorce or separation?
And to be honest, I wasn't, or still isn't, very religious. So I'd say religion didn't really play a role in my decision to get divorced. separation wasn't my decision. It was the ex moved
Made
out,
for you,
and
yeah.
that was it. So I think that the next logical step was divorce. However, I chose not to rush into the divorce simply because I put my energy and time into trying to create and get that relationship with my children first.
Right.
So it took me about 5 years from separation to finally
5
file
years
for the divorce, because that's how long it took.
Yeah.
To get things settled with the children. It took about 5 years from separation. I mean,
Is that common? Do you think that amount of years?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I work with a lot of fathers who go through the court system, and also, although it may be that after 6 months you would get some sort of contact or some sort of visitation, as it's called in the other side of the pond.
Visitation,
Yeah,
yes.
you get some sort of contact with your child. It's a never-ending cycle. So. Maybe you go through one set of court proceedings, 6 months is over. You see your child every other weekend, or however the standard is.
Yeah.
And it 6 months down the line, after that, something comes up and you're back in court.
Back in court again.
And it's a never-ending
never ends.
cycle.
Yeah.
And for many parents I know, it doesn't end until the child's old enough and the child actually votes with their feet.
Yeah.
It just keeps going. I know dads who've been through the court process about 5-6 different times.
Yeah.
Over the course of so many years. So.
Yeah. I mean, the question about religion leading up to divorce. I mean, I was raised in a very kind of strict Catholic school, so I have my beliefs. Definitely, I think that there is a God, there is a high being, etc. But essentially, what my dad taught me is obviously the teachings that I want to instill in my child, which I think is the right way to do things. My dad always worked for what he had. Very kind of lovable but stern Jamaican man, came here during the 60s, during that time. Yeah. And my parents worked for everything that they have. So, I mean, I've been quite lucky to afford some very nice things, but it's the work behind that gets that. And I thought that I found a partner that would replicate the same beliefs. A very religious Christian woman. But I found once my son was born, that the things that I thought would be easygoing, we're going to work together to get this house. We're going to get the second house. I'm going to get my nice car. She's going to get her thing. I just found that it was me that was always the person pushing to get these values, and the other person was there to just reciprocate. And
but do you think that's because of the whole cultural thing? I know the West Indian, or usually the black culture, that the men are the providers and the women are the caretakers.
Yeah.
Do you think that's probably why?
Yeah, and I to be honest, I don't think it's just a black issue. I think it's a generation and a kind of thing, being a man, and it's that question of what is a man? What is a man? So traditionally, the man would go to work, the woman would stay home and look after the kids, and that's a bona fide job for each. But as things change, hours change, you work from home. Your girlfriend, partner, wife, she could earn more than you. So those roles have just gone out the window.
Totally changed. But I still think the older generation still thinks of it in that sort of role.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with a group of elderly men, Caribbean men. I won't say which country, which island.
Yeah.
From the Caribbean, and I was told, and honestly, I heard it first from my dad, when I was going through separation, and I was, just rang him for advice, and you go to the older generation for advice, and both of those circumstances, including with my dad, I was told, just leave them. When they're old enough, they'll come looking for you. Yeah. And that is the mentality of the older generation, that
Absolutely. And I think there's nothing more that offends me to hear an elder who we would go to seek advice to say, don't worry, your kids will come and check you when they're 18. Really? Yeah. So they disappear for 18 years. You get the knock on the door, Hey Dad, how have you been? It's absolute nonsense.
Let's go back to your thing. So we were talking about a bit this divorce and separation, and what do you think are the common misconceptions about a man's bounce back after divorce or separation?
I take it the bounce back means getting back on your feet.
Yeah, getting back on your feet, getting back to some new normal.
Yeah, I had a couple. So one would be, like yourself, gaining that knowledge and really understanding where I was in the food chain of me naively thinking, this child is mine. I'm his dad. I go to court and I just say, I should have him for the same time as mother. They often see it as why. And this old viewpoint that the child must stay with mother. She's the only one that knows how to look after him. You are just a dad. What do you know about raising children, etc.? So all those normal things of when I was changing his nappy, when I went through the antenatal classes, I went for parenting classes, all of that is just discarded.
You say that one of the misconceptions is that the thought that you automatically have the equal responsibility or rights as a mother. That's not.
Yeah, no, it's out the window.
It's not.
And it made me really question my upbringing as well and my role as a man in 2020 and moving forward. And looking back to how I've been raised, I think I've been raised in the right way. And I've always seen my mum and my dad married. That's all I know. But can I interpret those values into modern day relationship? Possibly not. How have your experiences shaped your perception of marriage moving forward?
Well, that's a tough one. After my experiences, I decided, I'm very careful now going into a relationship. It's like I find it extremely difficult to trust a woman, after all what I've put in with my ex and with my kids, and how I felt I was treated. The fact that, there was so many attempts to not just tarnish my reputation, but I say basically get me sent to prison.
Yeah.
And it just makes it now very difficult to commit in such a way again. I've since then gone back into a new relationship, but it's just I'm very careful.
Very careful.
As to, it's like being one leg in and one leg out, as they say, sort of thing, because you're always prepared to jump ship.
Yeah.
Because you're so on edge because of
So do you think you've been jaded by your experiences that kind of change your perception of women? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it has. It has changed my perception of women. It has changed my whole perception of marriage on the whole, as to what it is. I know earlier I said I wasn't very religious, but I still believe that marriage between a man and a woman is something that should be for a lifetime and not just a couple years. So
no, I'm exactly the same as you. I find especially a few years ago of introducing someone that I would like, or someone I saw long term in a relationship, introducing that person to my child, it was very staged. From literally little to, just small things, meeting in a park, just meeting as friends, seeing how they get on. Because if your new partner doesn't have a bond with your child, it's almost whoever you date, that you come as a package.
Yeah.
So if you two are not on the same wavelength, but I've been okay moving on, but it has been a number of years. This is not an instant fix, and I found that I had to fix myself, which alludes back to the bounce back. Obviously, getting a job really helped, and I found that now I'm more positive.
So, in short, do you think that you've truly recovered from emotionally?
No, I don't think you will. I don't think I ever will. I can only talk about myself, but I just believe I've just got to keep going, and it's my duty to raise my son to be and to do all the things that I would expect, separation or not.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I don't think I've truly recovered, and just like this whole COVID thing, I think after the separation, I think I'm at a stage where I need to be, but it's like the new normal. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I can't see it going back to what it was before. The way that I would approach a relationship is definitely going to be different now than it was before.
This is kind of like something that black families have to deal with, and I think my mom definitely dealt with that, or both my parents dealt with that. Are we gonna have her diagnosed at that age? She's already black. She's a woman, and then she's gonna have something written about a disorder,
An extra label.